Hey everyone, this is your third video note for this unit. Hopefully this is becoming a little bit of an easier process for you, especially considering that for the most part these are not super massively long videos. As we move further into the content, there are going to be some where they're going to be beast mode and pretty significant, but hopefully these smaller chunked sections make it a little bit more manageable to handle. So for this video we're going to talk ethics, okay? Ethical guidelines are so critical to how it is that we set up research, okay? Because when we're talking ethics, we're referencing morals, okay? So what is morally okay for us to carry out when it comes to the research that we want and the information that we want to know? So there are guidelines that researchers have to follow. It is mandated, and it will go under something called an International Review Board. Know that, IRB, that's what it stands for. And they are going to evaluate whether research is ethically okay and falls within these guidelines. And if it doesn't, they're going to go ahead and boot it. First thing that's of critical note is informed consent. Your participants in a research study have to know what they're getting themselves into. The only reason why this could be a little dicey is if we use deception. If it is absolutely critical that you have to deceive your participants, and please note, deception is not lying. You don't see that word in here, ever, in this explanation, okay? It's simply just a misleading of your participants toward a particular end goal. The only way that you can avoid giving informed consent initially is if deception is absolutely necessary for your study's results. But even still, you have to debrief at the end of your research piece then and tell them, hey, I told you that my research was over X, Y, and Z. In reality, there was some deception that I needed to use, and it was really about ABC. That is absolutely important. Every research piece has to follow informed consent. Even if there is debriefing, it has to occur where there is informed, the researchers inform your participants at the end of what the purpose was. Another piece is you've got to make sure that your participants are protected from harm and discomfort, that they will not experience any permanent damage or long-term negative consequences. There was a very famous study, the Zimbardo Stanford prison experiment, where they had to shut it down after 6 days because the participants had devolved so significantly from their original personalities based off of how the study was structured that they feared for these long-term negative consequences. And so that's also part of the reason why Zimbardo's prison experiment is considered to be one of the most unethical research studies of all time. Your participants cannot be, held to a level of suffering while they're in your research. You also have to keep things confidential. If you're going to release your findings, that's cool, but you got to give your participants a pseudonym or an identification number or something that keeps their identity confidential. You can't just put that out to everybody on full blast. You have to keep personal information to yourself and keep it secret. You also, as you heard me make reference to earlier with the deception piece, we got to come back to the whole debriefing component. When your participants are done, you got to reveal all relevant information about the research and correct any of those misrepresentations that could have been given through deception. If you haven't done an adequate debriefing, it's unethical and you'll get dinged for it. Now, privacy, it's important to recognize that a big critical component to research is whether it's violating an individual's privacy when studying humans. We do a lot of research, and that's not always going to be done on humans. In many respects, the first initial rounds of studies that are done within the field are done on animals. And so, how do you go about addressing that particular question and that issue? And that's where we use animals. And even within animals, we have to follow certain very specific guidelines. It's not just willy-nilly, go grab yourself some monkeys and then do a whole bunch of research however you see fit. You can't do that. You still have to follow certain things with regard to your parameters for this as well. So, research with animals can give us information that's impossible or unethical to collect for humans. Okay, so if we went with Zimbardo's study, since we know it's horrendously unethical to place people in those parameters that were established there, or even another really famous study, Stanley Milgram's obedience study, where he shocked supposedly. Shocked participants with increasing levels of voltage up to death levels if they got questions wrong. Participants didn't know, the real participants didn't know that those learners that were getting those answers wrong were actually plants. They were pseudo participants. So you can't ethically do that to people and put them under levels of distress. That's where animal research comes into play. If it's impossible or unethical for you to collect it on humans, you may go through with animal research. However, you cannot put them under extreme pain. You cannot starve them. You cannot put them through inhumane conditions, okay? You have to treat them kindly and humanely. If they are to be harmed in your research, it has to be deemed absolutely necessary for the benefit of human welfare, or else it's not done or ever okay. Okay, so if you're putting an animal through pain or anything along those lines, your research has to be deemed by that IRB to be absolutely critical to benefit humankind and welfare as a whole for you to put that animal through that level of research. Okay, you also have to follow certain care guidelines for your animals when you are using research on them to make sure, again, that they're treated ethically and humanely, just as there would be for humans as well. Okay, so another quick video. I know I move pretty quickly on these, but they're meant to simply just be an intro to this stuff. But as is always the case, if you've got questions, let me know.